This is the Next Day Podcast, episode 118 with Mikel
and Tanyka.
where we have conversations on different topics. So, nicer weather this time around. It's not, like Tanyka said, Satan's
Satan's asshole.
asshole. Yeah. So, we got a wonderful breeze this time around. So it felt really nice going outside. While I was walking viral. So, compared to this is my type of summer that I really like. So
Yeah, when it's a nice breeze and you can breathe.
yeah. If I have this every day, I'm pretty cool with it. So
Yeah.
but we're going to be having a singular topic episode, and Tanika will present us with that topic.
Yep. So we're going to be doing our third episode of our Hamilton series, which you mentioned it last time, but we weren't doing that episode. We're doing this one. So again, just as a reminder, if you haven't listened to our other two, which we talked about, Alexander Hamilton, Angelica Schuyler, I think was in the same one, and we did The Affair with Maria Reynolds and Aaron Burr in our first one, I believe. I believe
that got a lot of downloads all the time. Like the last episode, yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating. Like, yes, the play is great, and I love it. Trust me. But talking about the real life people and really knowing the history of it is just fascinating to me. So, yeah.
Okay.
So in this episode, we're going to be talking about Philip Hamilton, which is, of course, Alexander and Eliza Hamilton's eldest son. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And he is featured in the show. So, yeah. Okay. All right. So Philip Hamilton, who was born on January 22nd, 1782, and then later died on November 24th, 1801, was the eldest child of Alexander Hamilton and Eliza Schuyler Hamilton. He died at the age of 19, fatally shot in a duel with George Eaker. So he died before Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton, but they both died in the same way.
Right.
So nuts. So Philip Hamilton was born in Albany, New York on January 22nd, 1782. His father, Alexander Hamilton, who was the first U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, and we talked about, and one of the founding fathers of the United States. His mother, Elizabeth Schuyler Hamilton, was the daughter of Philip Schuyler, who was a Continental Army general under George Washington, for whom he was named. In spring of 1782, Alexander Hamilton wrote that Philip was a fine boy and that his birth was attended with all of the omens of future greatness, and continued to express high expectations and hopes for the future for his firstborn. He wrote, "You reproach me with..." Okay, guys, it's a long one, so bear with me. That is the joke. Because he could write like no one's business. So, quote, "You reproach me with not having said enough about our little stranger. When I wrote last, I was not sufficiently acquainted with him to give you his character. I may now assure you he is truly a very fine young gentleman, the most agreeable in his conversation and manners of any I ever knew, nor less remarkable for his intelligence and sweetness of temper. You are not to imagine by my beginning with his mental qualifications that he is defective and impersonal. It is agreed on all hands that he is handsome, his features are good, his eye is not only sprightly and expressive, but it is full of benignity. His attitude in sitting is by connoisseurs esteemed graceful, and he has a method of waving his hand that announces the future orator. He stands, however, rather awkwardly, and his legs have not all the delicate slimness of his father's. It is feared he may never excel as much in dancing, which is probably the only accomplishment in which he will not be a model. If he has any fault in manners, he laughs too much.
Mm,
He has now passed his seventh month. And that was written by Alexander Hamilton's, or written, I think, in Alexander Hamilton's August 27th, 1782 letter to Richard Kidder Mead, describing
mm,
the 7-month-old Philip Hamilton.
mm,
So cute that he got all of that when he was 7 months old. Um,
mm,
Late in 1791, at the age of 9, Philip was sent to attend a boarding school in Trenton, New Jersey, studying with William Fraser, an Episcopal clergyman and rector of St. Michael's Church. In
mm,
early December that year, his father wrote encouragingly from Philadelphia. Don't worry, guys, this one's short. Your master also
mm,
informs me that you recited the lesson that for the first day you began, very much to his satisfaction. I expect every letter from him will give me a fresh proof of your progress, for I know that you can do a great deal if you please, and I am sure you have too much spirit not to exert yourself, that you may make us every day more and more proud of you.
mm,
By 1794, his younger brother, Alexander Jr., then 8 years old, joined him at the boarding school.
mm,
Philip enrolled in Columbia College, where his knowledge and enthusiasm were compared to that of his father, already a renowned alumnus. Robert Troup, a family friend who had been Alexander Hamilton's college roommate, wrote
mm,
that Philip, quote, was very promising in genius and acquaintance, and Hamilton formed high expectations of his future greatness. Troup wrote privately, however, that despite Hamilton's certainty that Philip was destined for greatness, quote, alas, Philip is a sad rack. Damn. And I have serious doubts whether he would ever be an honor to his family or his
mm,
country.
mm.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Philip graduated with honors from Columbia College in 1800 and went
Mm,
on to study law, like his dad. His father prescribed rigorous study routines,
mhm,
including waking for study at 6 o'clock every day,
mhm,
gross, from April through September, and not later than 7 o'clock for the rest of the year, after which, from the time he is dressed in the morning till 9 o'clock, the time for breakfast excluded, he is to read law.
mm,
On July 4th, 1801, a New York lawyer named George Eaker gave an
mm,
Independence Day speech hosted by a New York State militia brigade and by the Tammany Society. The Tammany Society, better known as Tammany Hall, was a Democratic Republican Party political organization that Aaron Burr had built into a political machine.
mm.
We can't get away from Aaron Burr, can we?
No,
In the
no.
speech, no. Eaker reportedly said that Alexander Hamilton would not be opposed to overthrowing Thomas Jefferson's presidency by force. 4 months later, on November 20th, 1801, Philip and a friend named Stephen Price encountered Eaker while attending a play at the Park Theater. Philip confronted Eaker about the speech, and in the ensuing disturbance, Eaker was heard to call Philip and Price damned rascals.
No.
In response to the verbal hostilities and Eaker's insults, the two formally challenged Eaker to a duel. Acquaintances wrote that Alexander Hamilton counseled his son, telling him to engage in a deloop, throwing away his first shot. So, like in the show, raise your pistol to the sky,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
The duel took place in Palace Hook, New Jersey, because everything is legal in New Jersey, a few miles from where the elder Hamilton would later be mortally wounded in a duel with Burr. So,
mm,
like, literally only 3 years later.
mm,
Um, Eaker faced Philip and Price separately, dueling Price the day after the challenge and Philip the following day. So this
mm.
guy's busy.
Yes.
In Eaker's duel with Price, neither party was injured, but four shots were fired. The next day, November 23rd, 1801, Philip
Mm,
took his father's advice and refused to raise his pistol to fire after he and Eaker had counted 10 paces, as you're supposed to do, and faced each other. Eaker followed suit, did not shoot either. So that's interesting.
mhm,
For the first minute, both men stood, doing nothing, both refusing to shoot. After a minute, Eaker finally raised his pistol and Philip did the same. Eaker shot and struck Philip above his right hip. The bullet went through his body and lodged in his left arm. In what may have been an involuntary spasm, Philip also fired his pistol before he hit the ground, but this bullet did nothing. As Philip fell on the ground, bleeding, he displayed, as described by both sides, exemplary poise and dignity. Quote, in his manner on the ground was calm and composed beyond expression, the New York Post reported. The idea of his own danger seemed to be lost in anticipation of the satisfaction which he might receive from the final triumph of his generous moderation. Philip was then rushed across the river to the home of his Aunt Angelica Schuyler Church in Manhattan. She wrote, quote, his conduct was extraordinary during this trial. Upon hearing of the events, Alexander Hamilton rushed to the home of Dr. David Holsack, the same physician who would later attend to him after his own fatal duel in 1804. Hamilton wished to inform Holsack of the possible need for his medical services. Holsack's family told Hamilton that he, having already heard about the duel, had already left for the home of John and Angelica Church, Philip's aunt and uncle, where Philip had been taken. Hosack wrote that when Alexander had arrived at the Hosack's home, he was so sorry. I'm trying to find my spot here. Hold on, sorry. Oh, he was so much overcome of his anxiety that he fainted and remained some time in my family before he was sufficiently recovered to proceed to the church home to see his son. When Hamilton arrived, he observed the pale and ashen appearance of Philip's face and tested his pulse. According to Hosack, quote, he instantly turned from the bed and taking me by the hand, which he grasped with all the agony of grief, he exclaimed in a tone and manner that can never be effaced from my memory, saying, quote, Doctor, I despair. Philip's mother was 3 months pregnant at this time, and upon her arrival, she and Hamilton stayed beside Philip through the night. After making a profession of faith, Philip died at 5 a.m., 14 hours after the initial wound. So sad. Philip was buried on a stormy day with many mourners in attendance. It was reported that as Hamilton approached his son's grave, he had to be held up by friends and family due to grief. Philip's unmarked grave is near the graves of his parents and aunt in the churchyard of Trinity Church in New York City. And I'll say, like, for anyone who's seen the show, whether in person or on Disney Plus or whatever, the scenes of the death and everything surrounding it, which is probably about 15 to 20 minutes of the show at the end, towards the end, it is heartbreaking. It, like, you can't help but just cry because especially the actress who originally played Eliza Schuyler, which is the Philippa, I think it's Philippa or Philippa Sue. She is incredible, and she just elicits the emotion you would expect. Yeah. Anyway, so last little bit, the aftermath. So following Philip's death, his family fell into disarray. His 17-year-old sister, Angelica Hamilton, suffered a mental breakdown from which she never recovered. Her mental state deteriorated until she became only intermittently lucid, and she sometimes could not even recognize family members. I'm sure that didn't get much better after her father's death. She spent the rest of her life in a state described as internal childhood, often taking to her brother as if he were still alive. After his son's death, the elder Hamilton plunged into a state of grief from which he never fully recovered until his own death 3 years later. So that's it. That's Philip Hamilton.
Okay. All right. So this ends this episode of the Next Tape Podcast, episode 118. The Next Tape Podcast is available on all podcast platforms. We also have a website called
Nextdaypodcast.podpage.io.
And where else are we at?
Facebook and Instagram at Next Take Podcast, and Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Next Take Pod.
And we have a contact email. You can contact us at mikeltanyka@gmail.com. That is mikeltanyka@gmail.com. So I'll let Tanika take the spot on this one. And so she can talk about it a little bit. What she talked about.
Yeah, we talked about Philip Hamilton, again, the eldest son of Alexander and Eliza Hamilton, his death and all that. So, which is again very tragic. I can't imagine. And yeah, we're not done. We still have more to come, and we are. Again, I know Mikel doesn't know much about this, but there is a true crime element in who we will talk about in the future, which is so interesting when it comes to the parallels of both Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton, where these two men had their first children taken away from them in different means. So I'll leave that there in the we talked about Alexander Philip Hamilton. We're still yet to talk about Aaron Burr's daughter, so who was also taken away from him. So yeah.
Well, stay tuned for that, everybody else. And yeah, that is all it for us. So I'm Mikel and
I'm Tanyka.
We're out until
next week.
Peace, guys.
Bye.